There is power in the name of Jesus. There is power in the name of Jesus.
Come on, Ruth.
Hello, and thank you for joining us for another message from the Soul Factory. We are a church where people come to connect with God in a way that's real and relevant. We've got 2 locations to serve you. In the D.C., Maryland, and Virginia area, we're located at 7702 Marlboro Pike in Forestville, Maryland. In the Atlanta metro area, we're located at 5567 Memorial Drive in Stone Mountain, Georgia. For directions or more information or to support us financially, visit us at thesoulfactory.com. For right now, stay tuned for a message that will change your life.
Bless the Lord. Tonight will be one of the best nights, at least I believe. They've all been good. Tonight we are in class. This is more of a lecture than anything else on the work. I trust that it's been finding you well and you've been able to do this work. If we can work on the screen for Atlanta, I did something and turned it off inadvertently. And so it's not showing a signal. Father, bless this time. I thank you once again for the opportunity. I thank you for the ability to serve, and I thank you for the strength to serve. Now, Father, let me serve your people. Let me minister to them in word. Let me, according to your spirit, be led, and hopefully you will make their burdens lighter, make some of their hardships just a little more palatable, and give them an opportunity to break through some areas that they truly want to break through. Bless those who are on their way and those who are listening by way of DVD or CD. I pray that as you listen to this, you will hear the blood, sweat, and tears and pain that goes into being able to break this and make this come alive. Thank you in advance for a major breakthrough tonight and revelation. Amen. In Zechariah 3:8, it says, "Now it shall spring forth, or bud forth as a branch. In a very short time, suddenly at once, one of the Messiah's names is that branch." But it says it's going to happen, and it'll happen in a short time. If something is going to happen in your life, and there's a proverb that says, when the student is ready, the teacher will appear. And you are demonstrating that you are ready and the teacher is appearing. Not necessarily me, but the teacher that is teaching your spirit. What we're talking about is the work here this midweek. And we've come to some conclusions, and I know I've come to some conclusions for myself personally that I talked a big game, but I talked a big game, but when it came down to the work, I just never got around to it. I could never get around to it. So I was the person that has the ink pens, the cards, and all of what I'm going to do, but I just never get around to what it is I see in my mind's eye to bring it about. And so it wasn't until I was born again, and then again. See, I think the third time I was born again, I always refer that to my California experience, where a truth came to me and it shattered my reality. It shattered what I believed in, and once again, it was pure hurt. And I accepted this truth and changed. When I accepted this truth, I changed my whole way of looking at things. I stopped blaming the devil for stuff. I stopped blaming him for things or blaming things that I had responsibility for. But I was still in the matrix. This spiritual matrix of religion. So I'm still in that matrix. And so I go back in and I give it a better, harder try. And, you know, we get blessed, man, and things happen and things change. But I don't transcend it. I don't transcend it. And I don't rise out of it. I don't rise above it. And I end up in the dead end again. So now I'm thrice born. I've had another major conversion experience. And you have several of them. I could be quadruple born if you really want to call it. Where areas where life just all of a sudden comes together and you realize, I'm not in control. I'm out of it. What we have talked about is how as orphans we roll in fear and we have orphaned ourselves. And we end up being victims or playing the victims or victimizing. And so one of the things that we learned about the orphan is to tell the orphan that they have become so cynical and so suspicious that they have sacrificed themselves, or we who have orphaned ourselves tend to sacrifice the very characteristics that make us us. And so when as chameleons, every time we change, we don't change back to our original color. We just keep forgetting what color we're changing to. And before long, we've forgotten what the original state was. And so we talked about Charlie Brown over the last few classes that we talked about, and we dealt with how we're wearing the mask, and these masks are hiding what's really going on the inside. And that we end up giving our energy to pretending. And many of us have been great pretenders. And so we said that when you are trying to break a pattern behavior or deal with your demons or whatever you would want to call them, you start developing patterns that you don't even know that they are mechanisms to help you maintain a certain level of anonymity or separation from reality as it is, and you're constantly trying to put a shield up. But the thing is, we think that this is us. We honestly believe that this is who we are. And the thing with us, because of our own selfish bent and what that seed of religion did to us in terms of that name it and claim it, we're always looking for this one more thing that's going to give us the key out, but never really seeing that the key was already within, because we're always trying to get out but not doing what it takes to get out. That's me. Or that was me at some point, and I'm still doing work. And so one of the things is that I shared is that what will have to take place is that, give me a second, let me go back to this. No, I'll just go right here. What will have to take place to come out of this situation, give me 1 second. Is that you're going to have to get your internal, and that's what we'll pick up, where your internal environment safe. I used to, a few years back, I said I taught something, so I'm getting on my own nerves. I had one person say, you know, I got to go somewhere and leave myself alone. And what they were saying and what we were identifying with is that our own internal space has not been safe. And so because that is not safe, we're not even free and clear to think clearly and feel and do what needs to be done. Now, hopefully you have purchased these CDs and that you have them on repeat in your car because each time you're going to hear something different. It's not so much hear my voice, but when you're trying to get out of something, you have to make it your intention that I'm out of this and I'm going to fill my mind with these truths. And if it's not my CD, that you have made your own mini CD digital recording and listen to yourself sometimes. Talk to yourself. It may seem crazy, but it's not. Instead of listening to somebody else's voice, what I do sometimes is I'll put a little track together and then I'll read my stuff to that music. And then while I'm driving or whatever, and it hasn't happened in a minute, but I'll go back and listen, like with Jill, with the Spirit and Truth. That first lesson she taught, I must have listened to that lesson 7 times. And I had the music, I worked out to it, because when something is rhema to your spirit, then you don't get it on the first pass all the way. You got to keep going so you can get it. And so the work we said, and these are just reviews, is you got to get real and stop pretending to be successful. We have to stop pretending that we are successful and accept that, no, we're not successful in some areas. The biggest thing that you have to tackle when you are trying to break out of this situation, this hold, this spiritual hold on you, is truth. And truth has to become your weapon. But not hurting people with the truth, but accepting the truth. You have to observe, did I tell the truth or not? And if not, why didn't you tell the truth? Or did I tell the truth exactly? I didn't pretty much tell the truth. And then you got to sit with that feeling of what it felt like to lie. Not justify it and say, I'm human. Why do you have to tell yourself the truth? Because the truth of the matter is that most of us, including myself, that we've been running from the truth, going to clubs, running from the truth, weight loss things, running from the truth, expensive clothes, running from the truth, doing all these different things to fix the outside, but never working on the inside and running from the truth. And so the reason that most of us are fearful is that the truth scares us. See, there are many of you who want to get married, but you don't understand that true partnership is being able to sit down with your spouse and say, read this chapter right here, and every fault that's in this chapter, that character flaw you see in me, can you point that out so that I can deal with that? See, that's truth. And for years, when I got to those parts in books or whatever, I just get it on my own. I don't want to hear what nobody got to say about me. See, but when you're willing to, but now as long as I did that, I ran from truth, I stayed stuck. But the moment I let my staff tell me, I asked them and I rate me, what do you think? What is this? Learn some serious issues about yourself, and you can't fix that up. But if you want to become successful, then you got to be willing to let your kids tell you the truth. I said, Joe, let me tell you something, man. There's a lot of people don't have a relationship like ours, meaning like we have with our wives. I said, there's only a few people in this church that really have a true loving relationship with their wife. I said, because Joe, you did the work, man. I said, the work was building that Lego house. And every time your children said, well, Dad, you would do this or you would do this week, you'd have to take it apart and start over and do this and all. I said, that's the work right there. So that paves the work that paves the road for intimacy later. Because you've both been free enough. Your children are free enough to see that you're humbling yourself. Most of us, unfortunately, have never seen anyone humble themselves. So The whole thing about the truth is to wear out your concepts. You've got to wear out your concepts. You've got to wear those things out, man, with the truth. You've got to wear them out. This is a war of attriculation, which means it just keeps happening and you just got to keep going at it. But you got to wear yourself out with the truth. Wear those concepts out until they no longer have strength. That lie no longer has a strength to stand against the truth that you're walking in. Is this really me? You can only, so you can't ask, is this me? And you haven't sat down long enough to deal with truth. See, now, if you've been listening to this and you've been able to catch up, your spirit, you have to be able to let your spirit know it's high noon. See, right now, I've let my spirit know that it's high noon, and so I can't focus on the things that bring me discomforts to my mind. Because let me tell this to you, once you've accepted, I'm all messed up. That's 3-4 weeks by itself. Because you got to sit with that. Don't think it strange that you can pick up Jill's book and then have to put it down, or you start this and you say, I can't come back, man. This is serious stuff that you're attempting to embark on. You're on a journey. We're doing something we've never done before. What you're talking about is, I'm going to face some things that I just totally blocked out. And so if you say it's high noon, which really, you're really saying it's on. It's on. That's when you have this conversion experience, and that becomes the death of your old values. See, I didn't come into contact with who I had needed to be, or I didn't come into contact with this inner strength until I was willing to surrender these old values. Meaning there's some things that I valued, and I'd fight for them, I'd argue about them, I valued these things. But now as you, and the whole thing is about blanking your mind, blanking your spirit, blanking your space, and bringing yourself down to a period of nothingness, bringing yourself to a season where, hey, and I'm going to explain it to you, where you blank it all out. And when you do that, you decide, it's almost like, if you ever seen a episode of Hoarders, they have to take them through and say, will you let this go? Will you let that go? Will you? And they keep wanting to bring this back. It's not until they say, just take it all out. Well, just as hoarders have this connection, they have this sentimental connection to their different pieces or whatever, and it's something going on inside of their mind. We have the same thing with some values that we picked up that were worth it to us, but have now proven to kill us all. So I'll read out of Amplified. It says, meanwhile, Saul, still drawing his breath hard from threatening and murderous desires against the disciples of the Lord, went to the high priest and requested of him letters to the synagogues of Damascus, authorizing him so that if he found any men or women belonging to the way of life as determined by faith in Jesus Christ, he might bring them, bound them with chains to Jerusalem. Now, as he traveled on, he came near to Damascus, and suddenly a light from heaven flashed around him, and he fell to the ground. Then he heard a voice saying to him, Saul, Saul, why are you persecuting me, harassing me, troubling me, molesting me? So now this is this voice from God. When you're doing the work, the first thing you got to begin to realize is, I've been kicking against God. Getting out is about letting God in. You remember in Lion King, let me out, let me out, let me in, let me in. He says, let me in. And once you deal with the horrifying truth that you've been persecuting the God in your friend, the God in your loved one, the God in the teachers, your God in the people who were with you, who were helping you, that begins to help you open up and say, wait a minute, And like Paul said, and who are you, Lord? He knew he was because he said who he was. He said, I am Jesus whom you are persecuting. It is dangerous and it will turn out badly for you to keep kicking against the goal to offer vain and perilous resistance. If you're going to break free, you have got to stop resisting the death of you. You have to not resist the death of you. Although you put a lot of time in building you, you have to say, I'm willing to allow me to die. Trembling and astonished, he asked, Lord, what do you desire me to do? The Lord said to him, but arise and go to the city, and you will be told what you must do. The men who were accompanying with him were unable to speak for terror, hearing the voice but seeing no one. Hearing the voice but what? And so it says, then Saul got up from the ground, but though his eyes were open, he could see nothing. So they led him by the hand and brought him into Damascus. Now these people, they look up, they can't speak. They hear the voice, but they don't see nobody. They don't know what's going on. See, there's some things that happen in your life that were just normal to everybody else, but God was speaking to you through that. God spoke to him and said, now I'm going to show you where to go. This means that part of the work is losing control, letting go control. I'm going to take you to the place that I'm going to show you. That means you don't know where he's taking you. The work is to accept, I've been off course, I've been the captain of my soul, the captain of my ship, I've been leading this, and I have brought me in the wrong direction. I now release the reins to you and allow you to guide me where I want to go. That means you may have to change some plans. And he was unable to see for 3 days and neither ate or drank anything. It says his blindness lasted a few days. Now there was in Damascus a disciple named Ananias, and the Lord said, had in a vision. He said, go up to the street called Straight and ask at the house of Judas for a man named Tarsus, a man of Tarsus named Saul, for behold, he is praying there. And he has seen a vision, a man named Ananias enter and laid hands on him so that he might regain his sight. But Ananias answered, Lord, I have heard many people tell about this man, especially how much evil and what great sufferings he has brought on your saints at Jerusalem. Now he is here and has authority from the high priest to put chains on all who call on your name. But the Lord said to him, go, for this man is a chosen instrument of mine to bear my name before the Gentiles and the kings and the descendants. And this part he says, for I will make clear to him how much he will be afflicted and must endure and suffer for my name's sake. Getting out is part of suffering, is a part of getting out. You might as well, if you're going to fight this war, you might as well go on and say, bring this on too. Bring the pain on. Bring it on. Bring it on. Open up the areas. Uncover it. Let's deal with it. Deal with it. I watched Denzel Washington, that movie, Flight. It needs no interpretation. That joint messed me up. I said, first it messed me. First I loved it. I looked at it, I said, dude, people came out thinking Denzel Washington was going to do his thing, and we had church up in this joint. And what it was demonstrating is that no matter what, that addiction took precedence. And I said, is he going to do it? Is he going to drink? What is he going to do? And I said to myself, I understand this one. I done made that trip too many times. I didn't had that temptation face me too many times. I said, all right, it's just this last time. I said, well, what you fail to understand, that last time, man, people get killed, people get hurt. You affect people. So Ananias left, went in the house, and he laid his hands on Saul and said, Brother Saul, the Lord Jesus, who appeared to you along the way, by which came here, has sent me to you to recover your sight and be sent me to you that you may recover your sight and be filled with the Holy Spirit. And instantly something like scales fell from Saul's eyes, and he recovered his sight, and then he arose and was baptized. There are points in your journey that you have to be assisted by someone. You're going to have to be assisted. Someone more spiritual than you, someone more perceptive at this moment as you, and you're going to have to be vulnerable and let somebody speak into your life. It's up to you to find out whether they're religious, to find out they have motives, but you're going to have to let someone assist you. Someone who has a higher depth of perception, that has no ulterior motive, to feel spiritual by leading you. To cooperate with the winds. The work is to cooperate with the winds of God and humble yourself. And when you humble yourself, admit that you're ill and you need to be healed. You admit that you're ill and you need to be healed. Now, God already knows this, but you have to say, I'm ill. I'm not right. The way I'm talking to people, it's not right. The way I'm responding, it's not right. The way I'm shutting down, there's something wrong. God, I need healing. And after he took some food, he was strengthened for several days afterward and remained with the disciples in Damascus. And immediately in the synagogues he proclaimed Jesus, saying, this is the Son of God. See, the work is, some of us, if you're honest enough, you are trying, at one point up until maybe this point, I'll just say with me, I was trying to get right, and I was already thinking about my testimony before I even got right. I'm already thinking about the victory before it even happens, and that's the fallacy of religion. A whole bunch of people shouting in victory, and ain't nobody won nothing. Ain't fought one. Let me tell you something. When you fought a battle, you have less to talk about. When you're in the fight of your life, you got less to talk about. You got and you got even less to boast about, because you realize you don't know absolutely nothing. So complete surrender is what's needed. It says, but Saul increased. They were amazed, and they said, this man used to harass people. Now he's doing this. But Saul increased all the more in strength and continued to confound and put those people, to the Jews, to confusion. See, you have to make a decision. Let's say all about you has gone crazy. You have to make a determination within yourself. I'm going to stick this out. No matter what my mother's thinking, no matter what my sister's thinking, no matter what my brother's thinking, no matter what my supervisor, no matter how far I push myself backwards or what I think I did, I am going to stick this one out. I heard a preacher say, I'm going to get to the end on the other side to see what this is going to be. So now, in order to do that, you have to awaken the champion within you. Tonight we talk about the champion. You have to take the orphan and take the orphan from being an orphan and turn her or him into the champion. Now, the champion is the fighter. This is the fighting part of you. We're going to talk about fighting tonight. It was amazing that you all, I'm glad you picked a song about war, because we're talking about the warrior. We're talking about fighting. See, when you're a champion, you know that nothing is given, and that if you're going to survive and thrive on this earth, that you must man up and activate that inner warrior, that inner soldier inside of you. You must activate the battler, if that's a word, or the person who will do the battle. See, in your orphan stage, and as we orphan ourselves, we allowed that thing to be killed in us. So the only way that we fight, and the only way we fight is to get what we want. And so you have to say, it's time to fight. It's time, if you are in this stage, it's time for me to get this in order. And the warrior challenges the fears and lies and false beliefs and judgments that create suffering in them. So what is a warrior? A warrior is not somebody that's going to fight you and hit you. What is a warrior? That's one that's going to challenge their own what? Lies. They're going to challenge their own fears. They're going to challenge their own false beliefs. They're going to challenge their own false judgment. They're going to challenge the things, the energy that brings them unhappiness. I hope y'all hear that. Warrior is not deciding you're going to fight so-and-so. Warrior is not deciding that you're going to do this and you can holler somebody down, or I'm a be me, or whatever the bravado or for false bravado that you have. The true warrior is the one that fights that stuff within. Whatever energy that comes through that makes me unhappy, then I need to fight that. If I'm thinking and my train of thought goes into a dark area and I start feeling depressed, like today, at one point I had to stop and take a break because fear just came. Oh, anybody have fear just come over you? It just came over me, and I said, I don't know what's happening. I tried to shake it, it came back, and I tried to shake it again. Now, part of that is when you go into the new place, you're no longer in control. So you have a whole lot of apprehension because I can't tell you what's going to happen next week. I can tell you where I'm going, but I can tell you I'm also willing to, if he turns another way, I'll go another way next week. And he can scrap Wildflower, and I'm going to have to be okay with that. Are y'all with me? Well, that's a level of non-control. Well, then fear is going to go through, because now for the first time you're making yourself vulnerable to truth so that you can break through. That's why we ran all the time. So I had to go settle myself, step outside, get my head together, breathe, do what I had to do. Why? Because I had to confront this energy, because that's not of my God. Fear and love can't dwell in the same place. So I'm not going to sit there and keep messing with this. I'm going to step out and do this work. Let me breathe. Let me do something. Let me do whatever I need to do to break this energy and remind myself to have faith in God. Come on. Have I created suffering in my life? Then I need to fight. See, the work is, I don't take responsibility for what I'm not supposed to take responsibility for, but what part did I play in bringing this suffering into my life? And what am I willing to do to correct that? See, if you're a prideful warrior, you're waiting for somebody else to acquiesce, somebody else to give in. The warrior don't care who wins. The warrior fights to win, but they also fight, they play fair. True warriors play fair. They fight fair. Warriors, the real battle of a spiritual warrior takes place in the heart and mind of you. Where's the battle going to take place? Say it's not verbal. Say it's not verbal. Listen. Like right now, I have a couple of brothers, and they out there nodding out. They trying to do everything they can to stay awake because they're weak in their heart and their mind. When you're a warrior, you take your body. He says, I beat my body. I put my body up under subjection. I run the race as if to win the prize, which means I take fatigue and I subdue it. Are y'all following me? And so now, you should only fight for one reason, because you know on the other side is nothing but love. If it's, I'm going to be right, you missed it. You fight because you know on the other side it's going to be truth and nothing but love, unconditional love. That's what I'm fighting for. That's what I'm dealing with. I ain't fighting to keep my house. I ain't fighting to do this. I'm fighting for that. It's about calling on your courage, your strength. It's about waking up the sheepdog within and not being ashamed to fight for yourself and others. Let's talk about this. If you're truly going to be a soldier, if you're going to be a good, true, spiritual soldier, I'm not talking about soldiers sold out living the living everlasting righteous soldier, but I'm talking about a soldier on the battlefield. Then what you're going to have to, one of the things that you have to be able to accept within yourself, and that is the ability to fight for yourself and others. If you can't speak up for somebody else, then you're not a warrior. Because there are times when you are unctioned, you know what, that ain't right. Or this needs to be said. And if you are the type of person that allows somebody to receive pain and you have the words to say, but you don't say them to alleviate any mental pain or anything they're going, then you're not a true warrior. You're not a true soldier. You're not a true champion, because champions don't allow their partners or people to go blind. And so if the orphan has silenced you, or if you have silenced your orphan within yourself and you stay in silence, then that's some work you need to do to start speaking up. Because if you got fear to speak up, then you have fear to live. Because what can man do to you? What can he really do to you? He can do something to you because you didn't open your mouth. You didn't say anything. You got to deal with that. The most important thing you're going to have to be as you work on this work, the whole thing I've been talking about all these days is awareness. You're talking about you have to make yourself aware that I'm in this spiritual matrix. I'm in this mess. I'm in this vortex of filth. You have to understand, like Deborah, I know you're in high school and you're paying attention. I want you to understand, man, you have to realize that what God is showing you, you're in a vortex of filth, a cesspool of mess, but you have to see it and understand there is a power that is darker than you will ever know, and its whole goal is to take your inheritance. That's the whole goal. Push you into slumber. That's why you woke up. See, there's something happening. I noticed you were hugging your wife, and I told one of my partners, I said, there's something happening in the factory with the couples who are really powering through. Some are being rocked, which they will be rocked, and some brought back together, but some are being brought back together. And that's what it means when he says, let the anointing fall down from the crown of his head down to his feet and let it go out to other people. The anointing falls down, and it's falling in here. It's falling here in the language, it's falling in here in terms of the talk. It's falling. And so I'm seeing people that are coming together because what you're doing is you're making yourself aware. Now, what is awareness? That's the ability to perceive reality as it is and see truth just what it is without having any judgments or opinions. Reality. Awareness is that I'm going to see it just for what it is, and I don't have an opinion on it. One way or another, it just is. Now, what should I respond with that? But as long as you see it and you've already got a decision to make about what reality is, then he can't show you anything new. Are y'all following me? If I'm not willing to, in other words, I want you to understand our brain is so complicated and it's so high tech that we are seeing we don't even see most of the stuff we see. It's nothing but memory that we're seeing because we are so used to not even perceiving what's going on. That's why we can drive and text and do all this stuff and never have looked at the street, because what drove us down the street was our memory of what was there. Well, in the same way, what is driving our behavior is often the memory of what we have, not the reality of what we see, because we've really never seen. See, I'm coming to the conclusion that I can have what I want, I can be where I want, I can decide what I want. Doesn't mean it doesn't mean that I will not be affected by life, but I can decide that I'm going to traffic on this frequency, and that's the frequency of abundance. That's the frequency of love. That's the frequency of receiving. That's the frequency of giving. That's the frequency of being, not the frequency of doing. Doing is going out. Doing is I'm running here. Doing is doing that. But you get to a point in your life that you realize, wait a minute, I've done a whole lot and done nothing. Is this helping you all? Oh, come on, come on. Orphans, as orphans, we learn to fight for anything and everything, and we were fighting against and defending ourselves against the demands and the intrusions of other people. So I'm going to tell you that most of your warrior got strengthened by having to pop somebody to keep them from popping you, or having to keep people off of you. So the only way you've developed to fight is to jab people verbally or whatever, to keep them off of you, to keep them away from the truth, to keep you manipulated. So no one ever really knows who you really are internally. Are y'all following me? So the work becomes that if you're going to do the work, you have to know that literally you have to stop fighting. Now, I'm telling you to fight, but you have to stop fighting for certain rights that just don't need to be fought for. You have to stop fighting for the right to not have your space disturbed. You got to stop fighting for people just to do it according to you so that your groove. You have to now allow yourself to become malleable by the water, malleable by wind, and allow God to push you into the places that he's trying to push you to without you intellectually second guessing what he's doing. You have to relinquish control. Warriors don't take control. They relinquish control to the universe, to God, to Christ, to the Spirit of God, and let them direct the paths. That's why when David came home after they had came and kidnapped their family, said he encouraged himself. He allowed the wind of everybody talking about him and making him responsible after they went out to do the raiding and they came back and they had kidnapped their children. Now everybody wanted to stone him, but they knew that we fought the war and it was all fair in what we did, but now they turned on him. Now he has to encourage himself. True strength is when you know how to and understand it's time to encourage yourself and what to say to yourself to encourage yourself, which means you have to make a list pretty much of what I'm not going to buy to make myself feel happy, what I'm not going to indulge in, what food I'm not going to eat to make myself happy, what restaurant I'm not going to go to, what telephone call I'm not going to make. You have to make that decision if you want this darkness out of you. Because let me tell you, the devil says, you know what? Just do it every 6 months. That's all right with me. I still got you. I still got you. Fall every 6-7 months. Slobber all over yourself and oh, I'm so sorry. You ain't sorry. How many people did Paul kill after he got converted? He said immediately he went to the synagogues. I'm here to tell you, I watched almost 20 some odd DVDs of myself, of Wildflower, and everything I did for about 3 months. Do you know I didn't offend myself one time? Listen to me. I watched hours upon hours of myself. And not one time did I say something out of tune to offend myself or offend. Now, somebody may have been offended, but in terms of my heart, not one time. Now, I cringed because, you didn't get that. I said, Deron, you're creating. But you have to understand, I said, whoa, I just watched 10 DVDs. Because when you changed, you changed. when you've activated that warrior, you decide success is truly success, not the appearance of it or the smell of it or the look of it or the outward trapping of it, but it's internal. And you decide as a warrior to fight that war, to do that battle within. So you got to fight the giants. You got to overcome your giants. Early in the morning, David left for the flock in care of a shepherd, loaded up and set out as Jesse had directed. Reached the camp as the army was going out to its battle positions, shouting the war cry. Israel and the Philistines were drawing up their lines facing each other. David left his things with the keeper and supplies, ran to the battle lines, and asked his brothers how they were. As he was talking with them, Goliath, the Philistine champion of Gath, stepped out from his lines and shouted his usual defiance. And David heard it. Whenever the Israelites saw the man, they all fled from him in great fear. Let's talk about this. You had two people. David heard the man. But every time they heard that voice, they fled in fear. See, the work is to make the decision. I'm afraid of a cat. Now the cat is coming. Let the cat walk by you. Overcome that. Deal with that psychosomatic stuff that's going on inside that you've given heed to too long. Whatever it is, that thing that makes you now, I'm getting ready to start getting smart. I'm getting ready to do this. Now sit within and say, I refuse to give to that. Fear come on you. You get ready to start making some decisions, and you just need to bring down so you can have control, and you start doing stuff. Refuse to take control and just let it be. Did you hear that? Refuse to take control. I'm not saying you let your child get killed. They got to go through. I've learned they got to go through on their own. They got to go through. And it ain't even about you being right no more. It's like, you'll see. Are y'all with me? Where'd I leave off? Talk to me, God. Now the Israelites have been saying, do you see this man keeps coming out? He comes out. Tonight I'm just doing the introduction to this next part I'm doing tonight. Now the Israelites have been, do you see he's coming out to defy Israel? The king will give great wealth to a man who kills him. He will also give him his daughter in marriage and will exempt his family from taxes in Israel. David asked the men standing near him, what will be done for the man who kills this Philistine and removes this disgrace from Israel? So we already know that this woman was fine. You have to hear this now. We're talking about a warrior. Now David out tending sheep, all his brothers, they out there at battle. Ah, ah, hallelujah! Ah, ah, hallelujah! Rim, bam, boom, going to kick you, zoom, zoom. And they out there doing all this crazy stuff. David come on the scene. They holler, hey, what's up? And they said, hey, King said, whoever be him going to get his daughter, going to be exempted for taxes, going to get a little money. He said, ho, 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 ho. Y'all lying. What? See, the warrior sees the opportunity where everybody else is doing the same thing. The warrior says, okay, it's going to be a challenge, but I'm going to take it. They're going to sit here and keep zip, bam, boom, ready to go, zoom. The warrior going to take it. And so what happens? They repeated what they had been saying. He said, what will be done? And who, he says, David asked the men standing there, what will be done for the man who kills this Philistine and removes his disgrace from Israel? Who is this uncircumcised Philistine that he has defied the armies of the living God? They repeated it to him that they had been saying. And his oldest brother looked at him like, what you come down here for? You ain't come here, but you left them sheep to do all this? I know you can see it, and you just out here. It's not even, you're wicked in your heart, and you came out here and watched the battle. Then David said, no, now what have I done? He said, David, can I even speak? He then turned away to someone else and brought up the same manner, and the men answered him as before. What David said was overheard, reported to Saul, and Saul sent for him. David said to Saul, let no one lose heart on the account of this Philistine. Your servant will go and fight him. Saul replied, you are not able to go against the Philistine and fight him. You are only an orphan. You are only a child. You are only a young man, and he has been a warrior from his youth. When it's your time to break out, it's supernatural. Your break comes through supernatural breaking, not just through you breaking, but you cooperating with the Spirit, and he will indwell you to finish your fight. Is this all right with you guys? I mean, y'all want to be doing songs and stuff, but tonight I came to teach you. But David said to Saul, your servant has been keeping his father's sheep when he was a lion and a bear, and carried him off the sheep and the flock. He went after and struck it and rescued the sheep with his mouth. When it turned on me, I seized it by its hair, struck it and killed it. Your servant has killed both the lion and the bear. This uncircumcised Philistine will be like one of them, because he has defiled the armies of the living God. The Lord rescued me from the paw of the lion and the paw of the bear. He will rescue me from the hand of the Philistine. He had a true testimony. He had some battle scars. He had some battle things. You ain't going to be nothing unless you start going through the door and fighting, taking risks to put yourself back out there again. If you're going to start over, then you got to start. If you're going to get right, you got to start, and you got to not listen to that voice that says, I don't know. See, listen to your chatter. When awareness comes, the chatter ceases. When awareness comes, the chatter ceases. The inner dialogue stops talking, because you're now looking at situations for what they are. There's no need to talk about it. You just get to observe it and see it for what it really is. But as long as you're seeing it with a religious eye, you're seeing it with a skeptical eye, you're seeing it with a scary eye, a fearful eye, a lustful eye, then you never get to see the openings that he's trying to get you to walk through. I'm almost finished. See, these things I'm saying with you, this is something you have to listen to, because I'm speaking to your spirit. I'm speaking to your spirit and encouraging you that you can bring the warrior. Now, what is your life going to be about? Shouting or actually accomplishing something before you die? Is it going to be, listen, right now you're faced with, are you going to live the rest of your life out like this, or are you going to live it? How much more time do you have to battle? See, so when you enact a war, you decide, I'm fighting, man. And that means I'm going to go through some down times. Well, I'm going to fight in the down times too. Listen, the warrior does not remove themselves from their closest of friends and that kind of stuff, in the sense you don't not be vulnerable. See, when you're playing games, you only tell the people that you want to play the game with you. Again, let's not fake ourselves out. When you're playing games, you only fellowship with those who play games, because you need them to play the game with you. See, I watch the brothers do it. I watch them do it and keep me accountable. You don't need nobody to keep you accountable. My wife don't have to keep me. My wife couldn't stop me from buying 2 meals every time I went to the store. She couldn't stop me from saying, well, I don't know what this is going to taste like. I'm telling you what I know. I get 2 entrees because I'm not sure which one I'm going to like. I want my other one, because that's how much I was hurting. She can't stop me from that. Hold me accountable. You don't want nobody to hold you accountable. When you really want to be held accountable, you hold yourself accountable, because you don't want the pain that comes along with the falls. Hold me accountable. No, you just want somebody to be there when you get your rocks off and get your man, and then say, oh, I'm sorry. No, you not. You're going to be a mean, lonely old man, old lady, because you never fought the battle. Hear me what I say. I cried today. I texted my daughter right before I came out here. Because sometimes You got to realize a lot of these relationships that you're in vulnerable in the same people that probably have to take care of you when you're going through something. And people hate taking care of strangers, especially strangers that they know. Because now they're saying you're going through it all and you never shared. What's going on, man? Let's have some love. See, we're at a pivotal point in this ministry. See, this is more about tonight. It's not about you. It's about me coming and honoring God and serving you for services purposes. Not for offering purposes, not for ego purposes, but to give the unadulterated truth for you to grow up in that. See, quiet as it kept, some of y'all have been struggling with the same thing too long because you don't want to be delivered. You shouldn't be 45, 50 something, 60 years old, still afraid to talk, still afraid to share how you feel, still to do that. You got to fight that, man. Do you understand that's retarded? Listen to me, your growth has been retarded. It has been stunted. It has been stopped because you are still acting like a 14, a 13-year-old girl as a woman. But then you're saying, bless me with the trappings of maturity and obedience. But you won't obey in just the smallest of things. I'm really trying to help you here. Work is about controlling your animalistic emotions and not fighting just to be fighting. Tonight I'm introducing, tomorrow we'll get in, the next time, not tomorrow, but next time we get together, we'll get into it even deeper. They promised them, he says, these people are springs. Now listen to me. These people are springs without water. This is 2 Peter 2. These people are springs without water and mist driven by a storm, the blackest and darkest reserved for them. For they mouth empty, boastful words, and by appealing to the lustful desires of the flesh, they entice people who are escaping. Did y'all hear that? From those who live in error. So there's a group of people who are going to try to entice you if you're trying to escape. What's happening in the season here, if you're really doing the work, you're going to feel lonely because you ain't got as many people to talk to because can't nobody hand you with the deep stuff that was created in your life before they met you in the last 4 or 5 years of the factory. And so the stuff that is deemed to be unwashed and undoing, you become, if you're really growing, you begin to realize, not only do I not have Facebook friends, but I ain't got a whole bunch of church friends either because a whole bunch of people ain't living on nickels worth of nothing. And there's a frequency that, listen, y'all have to understand that when we changed, the dynamic of the ministry and everything changed because all of a sudden you are here on your own merit with God, not because you know me. Say this, I must arrest my combativeness. It says they promise freedom while they themselves are slaves to depravity. People are slaves to whatever has mastered them. If they have escaped the corruption of the world by knowing our Lord and Savior Jesus Christ and again entangled in it and are overcome, they are worse off at the end than they were at the beginning. Now let me make sure I clear this up, because when I talk about people leave, this is not about go 10, 15 years ago. Or 10 years ago. I'm not talking about anybody specifically. I remember a sister, when we hit a certain teaching, her friend stayed and she left. And she came back and saw her friend 3 years later. And her friend had broken through where she needed to go to, and she was still in the mess. And she told her, I rolled out because that stuff got too hard for me and I wasn't trying to deal with that. See, God knew, as Jill, she taught, God knew that there was going to be a change in this house. And he knew that there was going to be a wind that would blow through here and totally separate whatever realness that we created to give to you so that you could feel good about yourself. Some of my talking to you is to make you feel good. Because that's what pastors are taught to do in the Western philosophy, and spend all our time giving ourselves to you, and you don't live a nickel's worth of nothing, and still having conversations worried about your well-being, not understanding that that's what kills most pastors, with heart attacks and depression, alcoholism, and you name a whole bunch of other things that go down, because you've given yourself to people who are not giving themselves to God. And we're trained to do that. Are y'all with me? Will, is this connecting, man? So the warrior in you has to make a decision. The whole joint will crash, but I'll find you. Did y'all hear that? But I'll find you. Because it's all about that. It ain't about nothing else but living your life on this earth as the way he planned you and carrying out your purpose. And the purpose of us connecting was so that we, through the books and everything else, could get back on course. That's all we've been doing this whole time. That's why you hear that thing that says, I got to be here, I got to be here, I got to be here. This is class. I'm almost finished. When I say drop unnecessary combativeness, you have to stop fighting people, man. Stop letting the first thing you do is fight somebody when they share something with you. Not even, just let them talk. The key to breaking out is empathy. If you're going to be a warrior, you're going to have to teach your warrior not the negative part of fighting and just getting your way, but you got to teach the warrior in you how to be empathetic. Because our biggest problem is we can fight, but we don't care. I hope y'all hearing me. So anytime someone says something in which you disagree with and you don't like, and you take it personally, and you're battling like you're dependent on it, you're on the other side of the warrior. Can I say that again? Anytime your spouse, your wife, or somebody says something to you, and you start fighting against it, and you fight with all your life within it, what you're doing is you're working to stand up and stand against something. You're fighting for your own personal thing. I've gone through it enough to say, dude, why can't you just answer the question? Because you're not answering my question. What you are doing is trying to get your worth in while you answer my question. The warrior says, I'm not going to fight no more. Did y'all hear that? The warrior says, you know what? I screwed this one up. Let me go ahead and just flow. But you know what I find the biggest problem with a lot of people is we don't want to wait for the old crop to die out for the new crop to come in. If I had $1,000 every time I talk to a man or a woman, say, I know what I did was wrong, I understand what I did was wrong, and I come to my own conclusion, but I got to go ahead and do what I got to do, or I got to go ahead and make this fleshly decision anyway. They're not willing to own up to the reality that they didn't take responsibility for themselves in the first place. And what they want is that sick feeling to go away. And very few people are willing to sit up under the sick feeling long enough for it to dissipate, for God's correction and his healing and his grace and his mercy to come in and soothe that area of shame that's inside of you because of a decision you made and you got caught out there. If I could give you $1,000 for every person who said that they're a warrior, but when the warrior time came to sit up under your wounds, the warrior can sit wounded. The warrior accepts the wounds. The warrior knows the wounds. The warrior embraces the wounds. The warrior understands their war wounds, and the warrior nurses themselves to get healed. But what happens is psychologically, because most of us are not warriors but orphans, and we are worriers more than warriors, worrying about what people are thinking as opposed to warring for what's best within us and what's best for God. What ends up happening is as soon as you get busted out, meaning truth comes your way, there's something that decides, I want to go hide. The warrior refuses to hide. The warrior says, Jill, you're right about that too. going to leave that. I think that's enough of that. Empathy. You know what empathy is? I realized that this part of the ministry, however I did, it was built on the warrior. I come at you, I call your name out, I ain't scared of you. Still not. But it was flesh too. I didn't realize I could see spirits, and I'm matching strength when I can outwit you. I can sit with these spirits and they talk, and we sit there. That's why, listen, a lot of men walk away because they know I'm not going to take it. If we're going to talk, we're going to deal with it. But then I realized the warrior don't know how to care. All the warrior wants to do is fight that negative part, that negative soldier. And I had to say, no more fighting. No more. And have empathy. And what is empathy is to reassure you that I hear you and I feel what you're saying and I understand where you're coming from. That's true warriorism. I hear you, I feel what you're saying, and I understand where you're coming from. And let me demonstrate that by my words and my actions, whether you change or not. Because this is about me being in right standing with my provider, with my leader, with the one who's responsible for my breath. And so even though I'm upset with what a couple of things you may have shared and you're upset, what we can agree with is here is the place where I'm off. Here's what I need to do. And here's what I'm going to do regardless, because the warrior faces their own inadequacies. The champion fighter faces their own inadequacies. Why? Because they know it's their own inadequacies. If they straighten them, they can win Wimbledon. That's why Venus and Serena can straighten it, because they deal with their own inadequacies within their mind. You say, well, why would somebody with a tight body like that and a backswing like that and all the money like that have to work with their mind? Because spiritual is spiritual is spiritual is spiritual. So if they got to fight for their mind, that means you don't have to fight for yours? I'm almost finished. Almost there. Empathy is saying, I receive what you're saying. I understand the feelings behind what you're saying. And I can get how you feel the way you feel. This is warrior. Are y'all listening to me? This is strength. But when your opinion matters more, yeah, I hear what you're saying, but no, you don't want to be free. You want to argue. You want to be right. But if you want peace, warriors do their best to bring about peace without fighting. The whole goal, the art of war, is not to even go into combat. And so if you find yourself in combat, then that means you ain't dealt with some tools in the spirit. Are y'all with me? When you do this, you can close the gaps in your communication with your people and with the people and with your God. When you start feeling where people are coming from, then your heart starts to return. See, right now, your heart is callous as a warrior, as a soldier, as a fighter, as a champion, as a go-getter, because you became callous by the world. Callous by the world instincts, callous by the world's ways of doing things. And I realized that I got to be softened up. Well, if he's going to soften me up, I'm going to take some hits, man. Y'all hear me? If I'm going to be humbled, if I'm going to be softened up, and it's called self-humbling, I'm going to have to take some serious hits. But this time I'm saying, God, bring it on. And listen, if you're in here and you've been listening to these teachings and you've been trying this, things should be a little rough. You should be feeling like, am I out of my mind? What is this all about? Can I take another week of this? You should be losing it. Why? Because you've been woken up. You've been woken up. And you go every place looking to see if you're going to get this. No, you better look for Christ. You better look for reality as it is. Now, we're in church now, but this was a lecture for me to say, turn the warrior on. Get up. Stand up. Don't give up the fight. That's what this is about. Get up, stand up, Stand up for your rights. Get up, stand up. Don't give up the fight. Did you hear me? You can't tire, orphan. You can't tire, warrior. You got to find that indomitable thing within inside you that says, you know what? I'm coming out of this too. I'm coming out of this too. And I'm coming out now, immediately.
Think for all those whose warrior has been asleep or kind of put on a shelf for different reasons. Everything Deron said will really help you. But then there's that group in here who were not asleep. They don't shake and cry a lot. They fuss and cuss a lot. Because they are the ones who won't let someone take their birthright. And they are the ones who came up and came out. They are the ones who religion would always try to get you to put something on the shelf. You know, to tell you that there's a box you have to be in and something about you just cannot. No matter how hard you tried, it just doesn't work. And you keep thinking something wrong with you and you keep trying to change. And I think I said it this way about myself for 15 years. 15 years. Somebody been trying to change me one way or another. And one day I just woke up and said, no. God, lead me the way you're going to lead me. And I'm going to find out. That's how I'm going to do it. So I'm going to give you a few scriptures. Right before Deron left, he talked about the warrior, and I wrote this note. He says, these are the people who have issues with being combative. See, you don't have to read it, but write this down. Luke 2:38. Right when Jesus was born and he was about to be blessed by, I guess, Simeon the priest or whatever his name was, Anna the prophetess, she came up. And she gave thanks. She'd been a widow for years. She gave thanks to God and spoke about the child to all who were looking forward to the redemption of Jerusalem. See, warrior, let me tell you what one of your problems are. This is what your problem is. You're going after people who are not looking forward to redemption. They keep looking back. And after a while, I'm telling you, you're going to get frustrated. If you keep dealing with someone who's kind of playing the hot potato game. And before you know it, they tell you they want it, then you give it to them, and you talk to them, and then you got to pull back because now you're all these labels. The deal is that if a person is not looking forward to a new heaven and a new earth, if they're not willing to come, listen, when a person starts suffering, they have to look forward to redemption. Looking forward to redemption means this. I'm going to go through it because I look forward to being what I am not. I so know myself that I'm not that. Deron said it this way. You don't need to hold nobody accountable. If you can tell me to hold you accountable, you already know what to do. But all of that is a string along. And when the warrior types get strung along, you get tired of it because you're only that because you have a certain affinity to truth. And after a while, you get tired of excuses because excuses are real close to lies after a while. They ain't just excuses, it's the lies that people tell you, but they use real stories. How many people understand? But because they use real stories, there's nothing you can say. So they play that mind game. And when you play a game on a warrior is accustomed to protecting their mind and their territory. So when you find someone who's playing that mind game, they make you want to protect your territory because you feel like somebody trying to steal something from you. So then you get into that mode. And then before you know it, folks are accusing you of not being sensitive. Hebrews 11:10 was said this way. We was talking about Abraham. And when Abraham had to go through, when he was told to go to a place that he didn't even understand, he was uncertain, he didn't even know where he was going. That's the story of Hebrews 11:10. And it talks about Abraham, and it says this, for he was looking forward to the city with foundations, whose architect and builder is God. If a person is not looking forward to God building, listen, the person that's looking forward, they want the mess destroyed. They know it's destroyed. They know it's not helping them. They know not talking is not beneficial. They already know that. And they already know that this is not a city built by God. And they look forward to God coming in and possessing their land. Keep messing with people who won't look forward to that. Keep on. You're going to be like Moses, striking a rock. Because at some point, you got to leave that alone. Stop for a minute and ask yourself, how many people do you really share too many words with? And I guarantee you, there's somebody who you probably talking to 2, 3, and 4 times. That don't happen on the first time. That aggression comes out because folks give you the impression that they want change. And then they play with your head, try to invade your territory, and you can't do that to a warrior. Because you ain't taking nothing from me. Clearly, I'm not handing it over. And if you take it, you better be strapped. Because if I can do anything to keep you from taking it, I'm going to give it my best shot. So when people try to rob you of a sound mind, you go into, you think it's just you. See, playing with your head. You trying to figure out why you got a bad attitude, not a bad attitude, but why you huffy, cranky, fuss and cuss a lot, instead of shake and cry a lot. 2 Peter 3:13, I like this one too. He says, but in keeping with his promise, we are looking forward to a new heaven and a new earth where righteousness dwells. If a person is not looking forward to getting to the place where righteousness dwells, you are going to lose your cool. How many people understand what I'm talking about? See, the warrior has to pay attention. Because really, you don't want to fight. You want to save your energy for a battle that's going to really matter. You do not want to go having a bunch of scrimmages and scuffles so that by the time it's time for you to take a city for God, the inside out, you ain't got nothing left. As I said, son, you become seedless and try to figure out, how did I become seedless? I had one more scripture. Oh, I like this. Luke 9:4 would say this. It says, no man having put his hand to the plow and looks back is fit for service in the kingdom of God. See, I don't want you to just hear service as in church service. This is church. The kingdom is inside. He said, no man who gets started, put their hand to the plow. If you read the story, Jesus said, follow me. What he's saying is, right then and there, you hear it. And he said, follow me. Make what you get ready to step out on an idea I sold to you. He said, follow me. And you know what this person said? Wait a minute, I got to go back and bury my father. He said, you ain't fit. You ain't fit if you're going to look back. Why? Because at that moment, you're right at decision. And you know what you hear on the inside. And that's God saying, drop what you think you believe, because you already know you don't quite believe that like you did yesterday, 5 minutes ago, 10 minutes ago. You know as a warrior that you have been challenged to look back over and review what you say you believe. He said, okay, you unsure, follow me. You look back, try to secure that old belief. He said, then this is why Lot's wife turned into a pillar of salt. What part of the thing you know ain't working for you are you trying to hold on to? I mean, I might be quiet, I may not speak up, but at the right time, it works. That may be true, but that ain't what God is saying to you right now. Right now, he's saying it is not working, and that's all you know. You don't go back and try to get anything to make that thing last. That's what Deron meant when he said cognitive dissonance. See, after a while, we look for ways because it feels so bad. This was another thing, Peter, he was one of them. He said, the house of God will be judged first. He says this way, it is a dreadful thing to fall into the hands of the living God. You know what that means? When God comes and shines light on you, and you discover the thing that didn't line up with him, it is a dreadful feeling. When he comes to judge, when he comes to you and give you his opinion over what you had a strong opinion about. And he challenges your opinion, and then he spreads his wings and show you, okay, your opinion don't melt too much of what he said. And now all the things that you were doing, and all the excuses you made, and all the time you told people, no, I know this is God. And then you discover that all this time you was functioning in immaturity. If you're not careful, you're going to do something to try to save a little bit of your face. Say, no, it is a dreadful thing to fall into the hands of the living God. Didn't say that was about hell. That is about when he comes to visit you to lay a foundation. It says that Abraham was looking for the city of foundations. When he comes to you and you find out that you have been standing on such a rocky, flimsy foundation, that you done stayed with a man that you could have left because he was abusing you, but you did it because somebody else told you God hates divorce. He hates lying too. He hates lying. It's a lot of abominations. But if you get with the right person, they keep you in something. You know what, somebody came to me, you know what I told him? Well, it ain't the unforgivable sin. That's all I'm going to say. Because folks who don't want to leave their husbands or don't want to stand up and say, listen, something got to give, and they don't want that trouble, they'll tell you don't fight for your right to have a spirit of your own. And now your spirit's so tied into somebody else, you can't breathe, think, or walk without getting permission. But then one day you wake up and you realize, wait a minute. This ain't about leaving. This is about standing. And if I perish, let me perish. And then you got to go on one of them numbers. Just imagine when you think about all that you gave up, all of the stuff you told yourself wasn't good about you. All the stuff you said you couldn't do. God said, I will come in and I'm going to correct that faulty foundation. But are you looking forward to your foundations being corrected? Are you looking forward for my word over other people's word? Are you looking forward for a newness? Are you looking forward to that? What you going to do when I break one of your traditions? He did it all the time. Their tradition was that the firstborn son run the family. Esau came out first. God decided before Esau ever made it to the earth, made it out his mother's womb, he's going to serve his brother. Listen, some people couldn't believe it. Wait a minute, Joseph or Esau or Jacob, how you gonna say we're going to bow down for you? That ain't the way things go. God said, now listen, I'll let you go along with your values and your culture, but there may come a time that I'll come and tell you, I'm really not slave to what you think. I'm like the wind, I do what I want to do. I have grace on who I want to have grace on. So everybody who tell me grace and this, and I have grace on who I want to have grace on. I'm running this. And you begin to lose more and more control. Before you know it, your opinions don't mean squat. Because God will come and shake and rock your opinions. So what happens to the warrior? You got to trust yourself to God. And you got to trust that there are people in this world who are going to stand on some foolishness. But what is your strength? If they are not acting like they want the New Jerusalem, peace out. If they are running, I said it this way, if they are running and you are chasing, they are running from you. Ain't nobody trying to shake hands. I'm going to keep chasing people who ain't trying to shake hands with me. That's ridiculous. But when I thought I would live until the number that I have in my mind, I had time for that. But when life served me a good old curveball, and that Nat Turner died at 50, her life blesses me every day. Because then I realized you don't get to call that, because I know she ain't want to die. And I know a couple of people who might be sitting here right now who, if God was picking people based on how well they lived, she would still be here, and somebody else would be gone. But guess what? We don't get to make that choice. That's why you do the work. But what is it that you're looking to do here in Georgia? Do you look forward to change? It doesn't mean that it feels good. Do you look forward to change? If you look forward to change, then the people in your life will be of great service to you. But if you keep looking back, trying to hold on to that thing, well, at least, am I all bad? Who? Don't worry about it. If you all bad and God is in the room, that's a blessing. If most of what you've done is bad and wrong to you and God is in the room, he said, listen, when a demon has been cast out by the Spirit of God, that means God is with you. But we prefer demons to be cast out by losing our jobs, getting hit by a Mack truck. We don't want the Spirit of God to do it. We want something from the outside to hit us so hard that it shakes us into reality. God said, no, I could have told you that in your apartment. I could have told you that when you was in the shower. But you didn't want the Spirit of God that lives inside of you to cast out that spirit, because you still look for accountability. You don't need no more accountability than me. If you feel bad, I did that. And if I didn't, sit down and ask me so I can show you how to deal with it. So the warrior can make it, but you catch it. Folks who are running other direction, they'll make you get your warrior piece out of tune. And some of us have did stuff like that because we love people. Kept getting in their business, stay out. How many people understand that? So write on your paper, God, I will listen. I swear I wish I could tell you this. Write Luke. What's that first one I told you? Not Luke. Listen, I won't be the real teacher. Everybody write it 1,000 times. That's how teachers got the foolishness out of you. Write it 1,000 times and then do it on a blackboard. But you got to want out. That's what Deron is saying. But in order to want out, you got to want in. The only way you can get out is you got to want in. You got to want that. You got to look forward. And by any means necessary, God, I want in. I want it to change. I want whatever you're doing in me. Amen? Let's give God some praise.
We hope you've enjoyed the message today from the Soul Factory. We'd love to connect with you. If you're ever in the D.C., Maryland, Virginia area, you can visit us at 7702 Marlboro Pike in Forestville, Maryland, or the Atlanta metro area in Georgia at 5567 Memorial Drive, Stone Mountain, Georgia. For directions or more information or to support us financially, please visit us at thesoulfactory.com, or you can follow us on Twitter at Real Soul Factory. Have a great day.
We're doing battle in the name of our great Lord, 'cause we are armed with might.
When you're dying to old ways and old knowledges and old ways of thinking and open to it, and you start to receive truth, that's a process. So I'm just thankful right now for the process.
I've been waiting for this moment right here all my life. Like, I knew I had some issues, just ain't know how to deal with them, you know what I'm saying? So now, like, he's saying that he can give me the steps and the guidelines to go ahead and deal with it so I can step into my authentic self. I'm ready for it.
It was wonderful. His analogies are always outstanding. He breaks it down so the smallest can understand. I appreciate everything, and I'm glad to be a member of the Soul Factory.
It's time to be replenished.